So now we're looking at our chain and gears at the moment. These are obviously parts that come together. So you have here, this whole bit is called cassette, and all those wings are called cogs, where the chain is going up and down whenever you're changing gears. And this is called the derailleur. This is really one of the parts you want to be really careful with. It's quite expensive to change and it's easy to damage. So what I notice here is that people often tend to lie their bike down when they're not using it, and they just lie flat down. That's really bad for the bike, especially when you put it on the derailleur. So if you do that, always make sure you have the chain side up to avoid damage on these parts. Then you also have here on the front, some bikes have 3 rings like this bike. Then you have other bikes who get 2 rings, or bikes with 1 ring, chain rings here. So these ones are slightly protected with this bit, but you can see them here. You also have a front derailleur here, which is this bit. So whenever you cycle and your chain move, this is not backwards pedaling. This is a mechanism which has to work really closely together. For the health of your chain, it's really best that your chain is always on the middle ring if you have 3. When you have 2, it doesn't matter too much. But when you have 3, try to keep it on the middle ring and use the gears on the back to change your cycling experience. So let's go back to the back now. What does happen sometimes is when you cycle, your gears start slipping. It can happen on the front as well, on the back, and you feel it that suddenly your gear is in a different position. It might doesn't change when you're actually gear shifters, and it will still show. For example, you're in gear number 5 and you cycle and suddenly the chain slips to number 4 or 3, but you're still showing number 5 on your gear shifter. This happens. If it happens very occasionally, that's okay, and don't worry too much about it. But if it happens regularly, you want to have a look at it. You can either do it yourself by making small adjustments here to the screws which are here, either here, or you have screws here as well, here. But only really make slight adjustments and see if it gets better. If it doesn't get better, you might need to bring it to a bike shop. If it really gets bad, some bikes, they often have their chain falling off completely, which then means it comes all the way down to here in this bit, which is really bad. And I've seen bikes where this happened so badly that the chain was completely stuck in here and they couldn't get it out anymore and had to replace this whole part. So if that happens frequently to you, definitely bring your bike to the bike shop, because it means there's either something wrong with your gears or with your chain. So to get this out, it's good to actually lift it up a bit here. Really try to get it out. And then put it on any ring. And as soon as you start pedaling, it goes back onto the gear where you was. So let's have a look at the chain actually itself. So the chain has these different chain elements, as you can see. And between each element there's a gap, and this gap widens over time depending on what type of rider you are, what type of quality of chain and gear sets you have, and well, obviously how long and how far you're riding, what speed you're going, how often you change gears. So there are a lot of dependencies in this one, but fact is it widens over time, and you can actually get a tool, which unfortunately I don't have, which you can fit in those gaps. So, and if the tool doesn't fit inside, the chain is okay, but once the tool fits inside the gap, it means that you need to get a new chain. And it's really useful to get that tool. It's very cheap, but I would definitely recommend to get it, because you can check the health of your chain yourself. Once the chain needs to be changed, it might still feel reasonably well when you're riding it. I would always say and let a bike shop do this, because it's a more complex procedure. The thing is, if you keep it on for too long, it will also destroy your cassette here. It can destroy your chain rings on the front as well, and might even your DLU. So that the longer you keep it on, the more expensive the repairs get. So really get it done as soon as possible.